Manchester United's caretaker search is almost descending into their own version of X Factor. You could have a judging panel of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Berrada, Jason Wilcox and Sir Alex Ferguson sat in the director's box. Sign up for the Man United newsletter. Thank you. The United X Factor judges panel is lacking a bit of talent credit. Getty. Ferguson was called by Fletcher for his blessing, but Keane is not impressed credit. Getty. Keane launched a savage attack on Fergie's legacy on Sky SportsCredit, at Sky Sports PL. Whoever's name is chanted the loudest and the longest gets the role. The current and prospective caretakers' names were all aired at Burnley on Wednesday night. The United hierarchy and supporters draw a line, though. There were no shouts for United's most decorated player and record appearance maker, or their all-time leading goalscorer. Giggs and Wayne Rooney are not part of the audition process. Ratcliffe seemed to be phasing out Ferguson when he stripped him of his extravagant ambassadorial salary last year. Read more in Football. Roy Keane would probably have approved of that move judging by his comments on Thursday night. The only one who ever railed against Fergie was Keane, and he is still in an unforgiving mood 20 years after his fallout with his old boss. The former skipper claimed on Wednesday night that Ferguson is hanging around like a bad smell. It is loaded language, but he has a point. Ferguson raked in £2 million a year for 12 years after leaving the dugout whilst barely representing the club beyond these shores. Most read in Football. Best free bets and betting sign-up offers. He is an undeniable great and responsible for the behemoth United have turned into. Ferguson merits the row of seats in the Old Trafford director's box with his name affixed to them. That suffices. Yet now United are actively looking at Ferguson's acolytes to replace Ruben Amorim, and Darren Fletcher even asked him for his blessing to take over as caretaker coach. It is reminiscent of that scene in The Sopranos when Johnny Sack wants to whack loudmouth capo Ralph Cifaretto. His right-hand man, Joe Pepys, cautions against it. I'd really feel better with the Pope's blessing. The Pope is the mafioso who heads up their family. Ferguson always reveled in the Godfather role during his twilight years in management. Opposition managers, many of them former players, were enthralled to him. Ferguson's aura became a problem for United when he retired and decided to pick his successor, who also happened to be Scottish and was synonymous with longevity at Everton. When Ferguson summoned David Moyes to his house, Moyes started fretting about his attire. That alone confirmed Moyes was not United material. 4 of the 5 former Ferguson players to have managed United in a caretaker capacity donned the club suit. Dress smart, play smart is an admirable mantra, and Ferguson has instilled distinguishable qualities in Fletcher, Giggs, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Apart from the crucial one, United manager material, it is perhaps too premature to dismiss Fletcher, though he accepted the under-18s job in the summer with an eye on going into management. He could not have imagined his first gig would be at United. That this regime is considering doing what the old regime did is a damning reflection on their judgment and general knowledge of United. Moyes was never up to it at United Credit. PA, Press Association. Ratcliffe is under fire again. Credit. Alamy. Amorim hit out at the United hierarchy. Credit. Sky Sport News. Ratcliffe ridiculed former United executive vice chairman Ed Woodward last year. He said he wouldn't have tolerated him, yet Ratcliffe is considering doing what Woodward did when he installed Solskjaer as caretaker in December 2018. For a supposed United fan, Ratcliffe seems to show an inherent lack of understanding for what is truly required. Amorim's mention of Gary Neville in his final press conference outburst should petrify United fans. He used that final address to cryptically publicize the feedback he received in the infamous meeting with Wilcox last Friday. Amorim did not give a hoot what Neville said, but, clearly, members of the hierarchy do. They shouldn't. Perhaps Wilcox has been watching episodes of Neville's podcast as he ponders the next appointment. Trial by podcast would be a new one in football management, but United seem to have taken their cues from players turned pundits, many of them embittered former employees. You wonder whether Ratcliffe, Wilcox or Berrada are aware that Solskjaer was booed after his final game in charge at Watford, or that Liverpool, Manchester City and Leeds fans hollered, "Oles at the wheel," during his final hapless weeks in post. Watford fans did, too. Solskjaer was sacked after United lost 4-1 at Watford. Credit. PA. Have they considered how misleading and meaningless the second-place finish and unbeaten away record were in 2020-21, given match-goers were locked outside of stadia for almost the entirety of the campaign? Or how tactically amateurish United were in Solskjaer's final months? Their Premier League results in his final weeks in charge read 2-4, 0-5, 3-0, 0-2 and 1-4. In the 0-2 defeat at home to Manchester City, United had more attempts on target at their own goal than they did on City's goal. They also started in a back three but switched to a back four at half-time. Solskjaer conceded afterwards he was not true to himself with the defensive setup and that it was a means to an end. The end was nigh. Even Michael Owen memorably broke down the indecision of Solskjaer's tactical approach as he flip-flopped from defensive to attacking. Most relevantly, Solskjaer was a manager who left the coaching to Carrick and Kieran McKenna. Ineos are insistent on hiring a head coach, and a Solskjaer homecoming would completely contradict that. Training pitch images of Solskjaer at Carrington tend to show him standing on the sidelines, observing. There are plenty of images from this season alone of Pep Guardiola on the pitch and dictating to his City players. Ineos did interview McKenna when they planned to sack Erik ten Hag in May 2024. Thomas Frank and Thomas Tuchel, two others interviewed at the time, are coaches who are in the thick of it on the grass. Solskjaer did get the better of Guardiola with 3 wins in 4 derbies in 2019-20. Credit. PA. Press Association. Carrick and McKenna did the coaching under Solskjaer. Credit. Getty. Contributor. United won the FA Cup final. Fickle fans wanted ten Hag to stay and Ratcliffe lost his nerve. So there is ample evidence to suggest that Ratcliffe curries favour with the impressionable contingent of United's fanbase. It is not a serious or worthy way to run the most scrutinized sporting institution on the planet. Recommended stories. Nor should a director of football be in post on the basis of his relationship with the chief executive. Wilcox certainly does not have the X Factor. Comments.